Most contractors assume that chaos is just a part of growth. They assume that the bigger the business gets, the more stressful it's going to become. The more revenue means more problems. And none of that's actually true. Chaos is not caused by growth. Chaos is caused by a lack of structure. And once structure is installed, everything starts to change. My name's Steve Huber. I'm founder of Billion Dollar Contractor. I've spent the last decade helping contractors build businesses and companies that don't depend entirely on them. And so I want to show you what this looks like in a real business. We had a contractor that was doing a few $1,000,000 per year. They had a team, they had consistent sales coming in. This was a door-to-door company, but this works same with Meta leads or Google ads or however it is that you get leads. And from the outside, the company looked super successful. But once you kind of cracked open the hood and you looked inside, it was like a different story altogether. Everything was super dependent on our owner. They were constantly answering all the questions, constantly solving problems, constantly stepping in to keep things moving forward. And if our owner stepped away, things slowed down. If they stopped pushing, performance like fell apart. In fact, right before he came to me, he had taken some vacation time off, and literally the company sold $0 when he took a vacation because nobody was doing anything. There was no accountability anywhere. And so overall, revenue was okay, but control was not. There was just this big gap that existed. And like most contractors at this stage, they just believed the solution was more effort. Like it was more oversight. They believed that if they just stayed on top of everything, that things would improve. But that approach doesn't scale. You actually can't grow a company that way because the more the business depends on you as the owner, the more fragile it becomes over time. Because every person you hire is going to get further and further and further away from you as the owner. You have 4 layers of management at some point or 4 layers of people. And you're far removed from frontline people that you are actually having to manage and they're helping grow your company. If you don't have structure in place, you'll never get there. And so the more that this business grew, the more layers that this owner had without structure, the more trapped the owner actually became in their business. And if you don't feel trapped today, I promise you at some point you will if you grow without structure. Because what ends up happening is you grow the business without a lack of structure. Everybody comes and depends and leans on you. A business that's very high overhead, super expensive to operate. You're not making that much money, but yet it's incredibly time and a massive, massive headache. So that's a real structure problem. And so they initially came to me looking for more leads and more sales. And when we looked at those things, the real problem was actually this structure that was missing. There was no clear visibility in it. I remember asking him, how much did you guys sell last year? And he couldn't tell me. So how many appointments did you run in the last 30 days? He couldn't tell me. Those things existed, but they were hard to get access to. And so he didn't know what was happening each week. He was simply just running around putting out fires. Roles and responsibilities weren't clearly defined. People were working hard, but the expectations weren't clear. We said, what does it look like to win? What does it look like when this role succeeds? And those things weren't identified. So performance wasn't really being measured in a consistent way. So problems would always just surface late. And it's a really bad place to run into, by the way, if all of your problems just seem to bubble up as opposed to you getting in front of them. It's the difference between putting out fires all day long and proactively managing your company so that fires don't start to begin with. And so the damage was done. Like the team wasn't the problem. The effort wasn't the problem. The structure just simply didn't exist. They were trying to scale without structure, which all that's going to do is scale your problems. So everything came back to our owner. So we didn't focus on hiring more people. We didn't focus on getting more leads. We realized the business had a lot of effort that was running through it. It just needed structure. And so if we wanted to grow revenue, we had to create operational control so that we could actually systematize and grow the business. And without the control, the owner was, like I said, always going to be the person that was there. So the first step was actually installing structure. We created really clear visibility and we defined roles and expectations. We installed consistent accountability systems. This wasn't to control people, it was to create clarity. clarity for the owner, the team, the business. And once everybody was clear and we had accountability across the board, everything started to improve. It wasn't that we improved a lot of oversight. We improved predictability in how the business operated and what people needed to do. And so the owners stopped being the bottleneck. They no longer had to solve every problem personally. And the team became confident to solve problems because the expectations were clear. Problems became visible earlier. So instead of dealing with raging wildfires, we could see the little piles of smoke and quickly put them down. Decisions started becoming super easy, and the business stopped relying on constant intervention from our owner and operating based on structure. Not guesswork, not heroics, just structure. And more importantly, above all, our owner changed. They didn't just improve the business, they became a different type of owner. They stopped operating as the center of everything, and they started operating as a leader of a structured company. And so that shift was massive, not only for our owner and their mindset, but for the business overall, because the business stopped depending on our owner to do everything. And so this problem isn't unique to one contractor. It happens anytime structure is missing or installed improperly. You'll have these challenges. And by the same token, you can absolutely fix those same challenges by just installing the right pieces in place. Like I said, most contractors don't struggle because of lack of effort. They struggle because of lack of structure. So without structure, everything depends on the owner. With structure, the business starts operating independently, control increases, stress decreases, growth becomes predictable. By the way, when this contractor came to me, they were doing about $5 million a year. And they said, hey, I need more leads. I don't have enough leads. I want to get to $15 million. We put the systems and structures in place and actually found out that they had a lot of the leads coming in that they needed to. There were a lot of broken areas, and the right wasn't 15 million, it was actually 20 million, because we could get there much simpler. They never would have gotten to 15 as running, but we got them from 5 to 20 mil just by putting systems and structures in place. I don't know if that'll happen to you, but that certainly happened to them. So if you're watching this, your business still feels like it entirely depends on you. If things are chaotic, they're unpredictable, you're like, man, this is way harder than it should be. The problem rarely is an effort, it's structure. In the next video, I'll walk you through exactly how the $1 billion contractor system works, how contractors install that structure, need to take back control of their business so you can see if it would work for you.